This is Lion Sphincter Bryan talking about Trump sentencing approaching and basically a federal judge, rejecting his request to move the lawsuit from state court to federal court. And him and some lawyer talk about this. Hear them out, what they say.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown. Glenn, when it rains, it pours for Donald Trump. Yesterday,
I can see his giddiness on Lion Sphincter Bryan, how giddy it is about Trump and how he changes the frown on his face to critical. But when he hears the left opinion, he turns into this docile puppy dog with this understanding eyes. I mean, he's a failed actor, so he has some acting skills. Let's hear what these two have to say. These puppets.
he failed in his effort to get his New York State case moved from the state court system to the federal court system. That means that we had some bad news today. Can you explain what just happened?
Yeah, nothing of consequence happened. It's the dual or triple or quadruple justice system at work. It's for favorites and disfavorites and political opponents. You have a different justice system, my opinion. And I base that opinion on the Mar-a-Lago descent of the FBI on his secret documents, whereas the secret documents of Joe Biden didn't matter because he was a senile old man that forgot. And yet he's at the beach and still a president of the United States. And that's because of Kamala. I think she's the only one that can invoke the 25th Amendment. And obviously, why would she? Because then she would be exposed if she would run the country poorly and nobody would elect her, and she then would have a disgraceful legacy. So she played this card right. I mean, all her career, she played her cards pretty well. The only problem is she's atrociously incapable.
Yeah, another obstacle has been cleared off the road to Donald Trump's first criminal sentencing. So Donald Trump has repeatedly tried to convince a federal court judge in New York to have the case transferred from state court, where he was just successfully prosecuted and convicted of 34 felony counts, and he's now pending sentencing, have it transferred from state court over to federal court. He tried it about a year ago before his trial in New York State Court ever commenced. And Judge Alvin Hellerstein, the presiding federal court judge, said, no, defendant Trump, everything you did in this hush money scheme and falsifying business records to try to gain unfair advantage in a presidential election, it was all private conduct.
Exactly. It was all private conduct and had nothing to do with the elections, because the statute of limitations expired and basically everybody has the right to protect their name and brand. Because today, in the age of today, you can have crimes or your record cleaned out by statute of limitations. However, with the advent of internet, anybody can look up and find whatever you did and you may have repented for. But now that cannot be done with the internet, and that's the worst thing about the internet. It should be an inalienable right to be able to preserve the brand the way you see fit and to expend as much energy and financial opportunity on it to keep it the way you want to have your own brand kept. And that's my opinion.
None of it was official presidential conduct. So you have no legal basis to have your case removed or transferred from state court to federal court. Denied.
Yeah, I don't think it matters because he can file appeals. I'm not sure if those appeals already were filed and then denied, and because the procedural law is basically at anybody's whim. A judge can come out of left field, some obscure county in some obscure state and say, oh, no, I decree that this, that, and the third, and so the law applies. To me, it seems like anybody with the Actually, I don't know what the mallet is called for the judge. It has a particular name, but anybody with one of those can make laws and apply them however they see fit.
Well, now Donald Trump, desperate to avoid his upcoming sentencing, tried again. He said, but Judge Hellerstein, we want to file a second notice because the Supreme Court in the interim has said that I can't be prosecuted for any official presidential acts. And I urge everybody to read Judge Hellerstein's 3-page judicial smackdown of Donald.
3-page judicial smackdown. So, further down the line, they would say that Judge Hellerstein? Anyway, this judge is an impartial and fair and honest judge because he ruled against Trump. But when SCOTUS rules in favor of Trump, SCOTUS is corrupt. And they dig deep on how many favors the SCOTUS receives from however many companies or powerful people that have lawsuits that need to be won. So the same narrative. It's falsifying. Is basically SCOTUS is corrupt, and this federal judge is honest and fair-handed because he ruled against Trump, and SCOTUS is corrupt for ruling for Trump. Let's continue with this charade.
Donald Trump and his lawyers, because he said, didn't I tell you a year ago that everything you did was private conduct, not official presidential conduct? Nothing has changed. Denied.
So it was denied, and it was private conduct. He privately purchased the rights to the story. So this has nothing to do with the election. It's just personal branding, and anybody is entitled. Like most of the people paid the LifeLock company to make sure that their identity is not stolen. So technically, he did the same thing in falsifying business records. Now, that's a misdemeanor, and it was past the statute of limitations, so I don't know. So the judge made the connection that, at least this is what I imagine happened because I haven't followed the suit too closely. But a judge said, oh, okay, because he paid to buy the rights of a story, he did it to fake his campaign or something of that nature. And he falsified business records. I'm not sure how they decreed that, but basically this judge, or the judge that directed the jury to find them guilty of 30 million 8 counts of felonies, when in fact they were misdemeanors, and how the manner in which they're expressing themselves, like so vehemently that he's a convicted felon, he's facing sentencing, and is like the manner of expression, it's rude, I would say. That was a private matter, and the justice system in New York, business being in it, had no business being involved.
And what we learned today, Bryan, was Judge Hellerstein again denied that third attempt, and Alvin Bragg packaged it up and said, Judge, this now clears away yet another obstacle to Donald Trump's rapidly approaching sentencing date, which you have set for September 18th.
Or does this signal some type of change in course here? Because Alvin Bragg is now saying that Donald Trump's bid to renew his case has been rejected, and so there is no need to delay sentencing here?
Yeah, Bryan, great question. It's a little bit complicated procedurally because this clears away one obstacle. There's no doubt about that. But what you're referring to is a couple of weeks ago, Donald Trump said to the state court judge, Judge Merchan, listen, when you rule on September 16th that I don't have any presidential immunity, if you rule that way, then before we go to sentencing 2 days later on September 18th, Judge, I am going to be filing appeals with every court in the land, state, federal, anybody who will hear me, because I want to put a stop to my sentencing. And that's when we got that little bit of deference from Alvin Bragg's prosecutors, because in response, they said, you know what, we will defer to the court. In other words, we will leave it in your capable hands, Judge Merchan, as to whether you want to kick the September 18th sentencing date based on Donald Trump's threats of an appeal, or whether you want to keep it in place. So, like I say, this is one hurdle that's been overcome today, but there is still that open question as to whether between the 16th and the 18th, Donald Trump filing all these appeals will succeed in putting a stop or a stay to his sentencing on the 18th. And that is a question that we won't have an answer to until probably September 16th.
Glenn,
So, I mean, this is technical court something procedures, and I don't understand that one bit because it seems like any judge or anybody, any prosecutor can change the rules on the fly to serve them better or their cases, like Kamala did block evidence to exculpate a prisoner, and that evidence was exculpatory. So to me, it seems that anybody can do whatever they want because they can. So I don't find this to be a clean lawsuit.
there have been a few hurdles that Donald Trump has been contending with in the lead up to this September 16th question of whether or not this will move forward. Does the fact that he's been losing thus far offer any indication, allow you to read the tea leaves at all in terms of whether Donald Trump will ultimately be successful on the...
So this guy, Lion Shetty Bryan, is trying so hard to get Donald Trump out of the race so his party can gain power and ruin the country, and because he's getting paid by the Democratic Party. He can't have a channel that's free of commercial, devoid of anything, and had such a good representation on YouTube without any major funding. And he has employees and all that. So he must be colluding with the Democrats in the propaganda that he spews out.
On the 16th in terms of blocking this sentencing from moving forward?
I think the answer to that question is yes. We can take some lessons away from all of Donald Trump's losses because we're learning a little bit more about how the judiciary writ large, state court judges, federal court judges, appellate court judges, I'm going to get to the Supreme Court in a minute, how they are viewing this asinine claim of presidential immunity for paying off, porn stars and falsifying business records and burying deeply damaging information from the American voters.
Bearing deeply damaging information from the American voters. So, first of all, it's not the American voters, it's just New York State, because this is a local thing. So, it's just the schmucks in New York. And the other thing is that bearing deeply damaging information, every person has a right, an inalienable right to their own brand, okay? And what is that? Character assassination? The justice system, the Biden crime family, and FBI and DOJ tried for 12 years to character assassinate Trump. How is the American people supposed to view the justice system or trust the justice system when the justice system finds laws or creates laws and revives laws or misdemeanors past the statute of limitations just to get the former president because they're so fearful that he will change everything, he will make America great again. That's exactly what's going to happen. And all these rogue agents within every position within the federal government and the state government will lose their power and their jobs because they're rogue. So that's the fear here. That's why the swamp is fighting so aggressively back.
Criminally so. We see for the first time a federal court judge, Judge Hellerstein, in the aftermath of the Supreme Court presidential immunity ruling, saying, look, I've considered this, and none of what Donald Trump did, none of what Donald Trump was convicted of in that New York State court case represents official presidential conduct for which he is immune. So yeah, we can absolutely take some lessons away from all of Donald Trump's losses. We're learning a little bit more from each one. Donald Trump is running out of rope. Here's the problem. Let's go all the way up to the Supreme Court. They seem to have a great big spool of rope, and they keep giving Donald Trump a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. At some point, are they going to finally say, We have to let the law run its course against this abject criminal former president. The
Abject criminal former president. So basically, until a court finds you guilty, you're not a criminal if a court doesn't find you guilty or a jury doesn't find you guilty. I'm sorry, but there's many more instances or other political figures, like, for example, I'm struggling to find a Republican. Oh yeah, so Kelly Loeffler, the senator from Georgia, who lost her seat because of apparently she sold her investment portfolio. She sold her stocks in light of COVID because she was part of the government. She had access to information about COVID. And apparently she sold her stock because apparently they claim she knew that the market is going to go down. So she sold the stock and they found her, they smeared her all over the political sphere through ads in Georgia and so on and so forth to get rid of her or to have her lose her seat and have Rorschach put in her place. So basically, that's insider trading. But there's no evidence of that. So basically, her portfolio manager did the selling. But also, Nancy Pelosi was guilty of the same story, like buying Nvidia stocks and I don't know what other chip stocks in light of the new bill that was about to be passed, the CHIPS Act. So I don't know. Isn't there like a quintuple justice system here for suckers, losers, and VIPs and VIPs? Let's see.
The way it would run its course against any other American who committed crimes against the people of the United States. And
it's not against the people of the United States. It's a state fucking court, okay? It's just a bunch of schmucks in New York City. They're bitching about it. So it's not the people of the United States, because perhaps now 90 million people will vote for Trump and he's going to lose the election somehow because there's going to be 200 million other voters that's going to vote for the competent VP Kamala Harris, the super ultra competent Vice President Kamala Harris. I mean, she's so competent, she only has to do is coast through everything.
I hope at some point the Supreme Court stops giving Donald Trump, more and more rope, and he loses his grip and he drops right into an orange jumpsuit.
Well, wishful thinking. Why would the president jump into an orange jumpsuit when Bernie Madoff and all those financial managers who stole money from the American people are in like college campus prisons, and you want Donald Trump to go into an orange suit? No, that will never happen. I think SCOTUS needs to intervene, or the appellate court in New York, which is the highest court in New York, is not the Supreme Court in New York. So, and I've seen cases in New York how fair-handed they are. I've seen the fairness.
In a jail cell, which is where he belongs for the crimes he has committed.
I think you have committed crimes for lying to the American people. And Bryan has committed crimes for lying to the American people. And I think you should be indicted for election interference. How about that?
Judge Hellerstein is a federal judge, and I know that the Supreme Court can kind of do whatever it wants, regardless of what happens in courts below it.
See how they phrase this? The Supreme Court can do whatever it wants. So they're trying to imply the Supreme Court can run away with everything and can become an authoritarian court. So is this type of like innuendos, that the way they phrase things that are kind of annoying, the way they, in the manner in which they illustrate their points of view or their phrasing, which is very annoying to me. Basically, they're trying to imply that the Supreme Court is corrupt for not siding against Trump and with the deep state.
But does it offer some precedent that even is going to be taken into account a little bit when the Supreme Court ultimately does get this request by Donald Trump to consider delaying his appeal? I mean, now we do have a response from a federal judge, not just a New York state judge, but a federal judge who's weighed in here. And so how much will that matter as Donald Trump makes his play for some delay here in his sentencing?
Bryan, that's a great story. It's a great point. And it is sort of a bigger news story. It's a bigger legal development than I think people realize. As you say, this is a federal court judge, longtime federal court judge, well-respected federal.
Well respected because he is on your side and he rejected Trump. That's why he's well respected. I bet you when the Supreme Court is going to get the case and they're going to find a legal basis to rule in favor of Trump to dismiss this lawsuits and accusations and revival of misdemeanors past their statute of limitations, which kind of preclude everything. Once you break the law to bring a lawsuit, then it should preclude you from everything. So once the Supreme Court is going to find a legal sound reason for dismissing Trump's lawsuits, then all of you lefties are going to scream at the top of your lungs that the Supreme Court is corrupt.
Federal court judge who said, yeah, I had a look at the Supreme Court's new ruling and Donald Trump doesn't qualify. He doesn't benefit from it given the conduct and the crimes he committed. Now, you use
the conduct and the crimes. Listen, moron, it's fucking misdemeanors. There's no crimes.
The word precedent. A lower court can't set precedent for a higher court, but Supreme Court justices, I do believe, when they're being honest brokers of the law.
Again, when they're being honest. So they're trying to already, these two, they're trying to get their rhetoric heard to the highest levels of the justice system, including the Supreme Court. Basically, when they're trying to influence the Supreme Court from being fair-handed or citing the law or the Constitution. So they're trying to influence the court already with this video. And they're going to claim that the Supreme Court is corrupt if it finds legal argument and laws to side with Trump. They'll find all these bullshit reasons to claim that the SCOTUS is corrupt.
Take into account and take seriously what the trial court judges on the federal bench say, what the circuit court appeals judges say on the federal bench. They take it all into account. I don't think they dismiss it out of hand. And I think the fact that we now have a highly regarded federal court judge.
A highly regarded federal court judge. See how they express themselves? So basically, this guy, Hellerstein or whatever his name is, ruled against Trump. He's a highly regarded, but then they refer to SCOTUS when they want to be fair brokers of the law. So basically they're saying, well, the SCOTUS is inclined to be corrupt, whereas this federal judge, he's, an honest judge because it ruled according to their opinion. I think these two should get gag orders against them because they're trying to influence the courts. How about that? Get these fuckers gagged. This Lion Shetty Bryan and Moron Tyler Cohen and this, I don't know, legal advisor, whatever the fuck he is.
Making the first ruling, it's not precedent, but it is an important voice of reason.
Oh, involvement. My ass. Okay, I rest my case. I'm tired of talking about these two idiots. Alright, enough. Where the fuck is this? Huh.